Have you ever wondered if there's a movie out there that depicts a not quite zombie apocalypse, but close enough, that takes place in a country where guns are more or less illegal for everyone to own? What would happen? Well, if you've not seen it before, there's a movie out there for you. 28 Days Later. That's what we're going to talk about today. It's the Geek Ball channel. If you've not been here before, my name is Bobbie, and today we're going to be talking about the movie 28 Days Later. Now, this movie came out in 2002, and as I mentioned in a previous video, which I'll link to, it is definitely one of the movies that helped revive, if that's the term for it, the zombie genre in the early 2000s. So this, along with Resident Evil, the remake of Dawn of the Dead, and Shaun of the Dead, all greatly contributed in that this window of just a few years they all came out. And then, of course, the pinnacle being the release of The Walking Dead, which is still riding that high now 2 decades later. So, I originally saw this movie back when it came out in theaters, and here in the U.S. It's a British film. And I thought it was a really good movie. I rewatched it again recently with my nephew, and part of this is because this movie has at present has one sequel, but it's going to be having another sequel in the near future here. Actually, let's see, I'm recording this May 30th, so before the end of next month. So sometime in June in 2025, the sequel will be coming out. The second sequel will be coming out. The first sequel is 28 weeks later, and the second sequel is 28 years later. And it will actually be 23 years later in real time, but, close enough. So, briefly, who's in the movie? There aren't a whole lot of characters, because most of the movie takes place after everything has gone to hell. And of them, only a few of them are fairly well known. So our main character, Jim, is played by Cillian Murphy, who has been in several things since then. I think this is one of his earliest movies, though. He is in the Christopher Nolan Batman movies as the Scarecrow. He is in the movie Sunshine, which is a rather interesting movie that starts off as a sci-fi movie and then transitions into kind of a slasher movie before it's over with. I need to do a video on that at some point. And then also plays the title character in Oppenheimer, and which I did a video on that previously. So, and he's in all kinds of other things. I've not watched Peaky Blinders, but he's in that, and just numerous other things. Good actor. Then we have Naomi Harris as Selena, who is the other co-lead, if there is one, or she's the number one supporting character. Now, she's been in three of the Daniel Craig Bond films. Was she in 3 of them, or was she in 2 of them? Anyway, I think she might only be in 2 of them, now that I think about that. But she plays Moneypenny, and she also plays Tia Dalma in the second and third Pirates of the Caribbean movies. Then we also have Christopher Eccleston, who plays Major West. Now, he is probably most widely known as the 9th Doctor from Doctor Who. Whenever they relaunched the series in the 2000s, he was the guy. He's only in 1 season, though. And after him was whenever David Tennant took over. And so his would have been the series that introduced Rose Tyler, a number of other characters to the series. I think I watched all the episodes he's in. It's not very many, but I liked him. Wish he would have stuck around longer. Wish he would have been in that episode that had John Hurt come in as the Doctor during the Time War, but didn't happen. Also played Destro in G.I. Joe: The Rise of Cobra. and did okay. That movie wasn't overly great in my opinion, despite I'm a Joe fan, but that movie was not good in my opinion. He's in several other things. I'm relatively certain he was the villain in the Gone in 60 Seconds remake with Nicolas Cage. Didn't double check that, probably should have, but I think that was him. And he's in numerous other things as well. Then we also have Brendan Gleeson as Frank, and he is probably best known for his role in Braveheart, where he is one of Wallace's friends from childhood, big guy, red beard and everything. And I think his character's dad is also like fighting in the to to overthrow English rule of Scotland. But he's in several other movies. I think one of the big ones is Gangs of New York, where plays a I can't think of his character's name, but DiCaprio convinces him to run for sheriff, and he wins. And then Angel Day-Lewis, well, he kind of, I think he demanded a recount, so to speak. Don't want to spoil that movie. It's a long movie. It's a good movie, though. You should check it out. And, several other movies. He's in Bruges, where he's the guy who takes Colin Farrell to Bruges and then is supposed to take him out on the orders of Ray Fiennes, if I remember right. And I'm sure there's several other movies that I'm totally spacing, but I think those are the ones that people have seen movies like the movies I've seen. Those are what you recognize them from. Those are most of the name people in the movie. Like I said, there aren't very many characters at all. So anyway, so what's it all about? Like I said, the creatures in the movie are not zombies in the traditional sense, because zombies are, one, they're almost always the undead or the living dead. They are corpses that are reanimated with a drive to devour living human flesh. These, number one, are not dead. They're still very much alive, which means you don't have to shoot them in the head to kill them. You just need to cause enough bodily harm to stop them. They are fueled purely by blind rage. What they're infected with just overrides all humanity, and they're just consumed with a desire to attack and to spread the infection. They do bite and tear at people, but it's with the intent of spreading the virus. So while they do kill people, generally speaking, they try to infect them, and at least that's the behavior that we see the few times. So they will eventually starve, or dehydrate, or something. They will eventually just die. And yeah, like I said, they're fueled by rage, and they see or hear movement. They swarm. If one of them goes running by and there's one there, it'll start following it. They form herds quickly. And but the big thing is, this movie takes place in England, so the general populace does not have access to firearms, which makes it exceptionally difficult to stop these things. So yeah, even though they behave like zombies, they're not zombies. Okay, but it's also a distinction that is only like super technical. This may as well be a zombie movie. Okay, and in fact, it's even going to be on the playlist for the channel. It's going to be lumped in with zombie movies. So to talk just briefly about the sequel, 28 Weeks Later, is well, I'll talk more about that at the end. Okay, so our main character, Cillian Murphy, Jim, wakes up from a coma. I don't know if this came out before Kirkman started writing The Walking Dead, but this definitely came out before they started releasing The Walking Dead on AMC. So I don't know if this influenced Kirkman at all or not. But Jim wakes up from a coma. He was a bicycle messenger in London and had a car crash, and wakes up in the hospital in a coma, and wanders around the city for a little bit. It doesn't take him long to realize that something's wrong, because he can't find anybody, and he's yelling for help, and eventually comes across a kiosk with a bunch of people's pictures and stuff on it. And I think that's the real moment of realization that something really bad has happened. And so he ends up going into a church. That's where he gets attacked, and running from that attack is where he meets Celine and another gentleman. They rescue him, kind of give him the brief lowdown, and then through various things, I'm not going to give a super blow by blow here on this one. They run into Frank and his daughter Hannah, who they are in a high-rise apartment building. They're using like Christmas lights to try to signal that they're there. They get in there, and Frank gives them the lowdown that like they're about out of water because he's already drained all the tanks of the toilets in the building. He's got a bunch of buckets on the rooftop to collect rain, but it hasn't rained in almost 2 weeks. And so Celine tries to push Jim to understand that these two are going to slow them down, and they need to think about survival. Jim's kind of pushing back with like, well, there's no point in surviving if we're not going to live. So they all ultimately decide that they have to leave the city. And there's a signal on the radio from people claiming that they've got the answer to infection. And it's a military signal. So they get into a cab and load up all their stuff, stop at a grocery store, have a close encounter, and they have to change a flat tire. And they head off. And, you see them kind of driving through the countryside, and they make a stop somewhere and get fuel. And, a few other things happen, but eventually they get to the roadblock that it said to go to. And as they're there's no military, there's no nothing, and Frank kind of flips out because he bet it all on this. And then he gets infected, and the military guys show up and shoot him. And by the way, the whole infection thing, like from the moment you're infected, it's a minute or less before you turn, and it's from any kind of bodily fluid from the creatures gets into your system, you're screwed. So then they're taken to a mansion outside of town, and things kind of simmer for a little bit. It's obvious the soldiers are something a little off, and eventually the commander confides in Jim that, well, what are, let's suppose that they ride everything out and the infected all die. He's like, but what then? He's like, we're all men. Like, do we just sit around and wait to die? He's like, I promised them women, and you have brought 2 of them with you. So you can be part of the solution or part of the problem here, Jim. Jim decides he's going to be part of the problem because he's not about to see what he knows is going to happen now. Because he knows they're definitely going to take advantage of the women. One of whom is like a 15-year-old girl, Frank's daughter, Hannah. So they try to take him out and fail. Also, there's an officer there who's trying to explain to them, like, he's trying to tell them, like, guys, the world hasn't ended. He's like, the infection is only here. He's like, think about it. One of these things gets on a plane. That plane is never going to land because everyone's going to be turned before the plane ever gets anywhere, and the plane's going to crash. Any boat that leaves this island, the moment the rest of the world knows what's going on, they're just going to sink any ship that leaves. He's like, no, they've quarantined us. He's like, the rest of the world's still spinning, and we're just going to sit here and die. And they don't believe him. They think that the world's basically toast. And after they try to kill Jim, and he escapes over the wall that surrounds the mansion, he looks up at the sky, and you can see a plane flying overhead. So the other guy was right. And then it kind of turns into Resident Evil for a little while. It's the fight in the mansion with the infected and the army and everything. And Jim comes in and goes all medieval on everybody. Literally, like, breaks one dude's skull with his bare hands. Kind of like the mountain in Game of Thrones. The old thumbs to the eye sockets move. And, so things happen. Don't want to completely give away the ending or anything, but it does end on a relative high note, with the implication that at least some of them are going to survive and be rescued. So that is very much in contrast to how the sequel ends, which the sequel ends implying that the infection gets out. So the sequel, 28 Weeks Later, is essentially the rest of the world's like, well, I mean, we've got all this prime real estate sitting here, like, we've given enough time. Surely the infected are all dead because there's no activity we've seen on the satellites or anything. So like from the date of when the last person had been infected, we've given enough time that they should have been dead by now. Because we're not just going to let all the skyscrapers and everything in London just sit there and rot. Like, no, we're going to move people back in. And all their problems start because they find someone who's immune. They've been surviving all this time, and they're a carrier. They're infected, but they're not symptomatic. And from there, instead of developing a cure, like, well, the virus gets out again, and, calamity ensues. No idea where the whole 28 years later is going. Believe they're going with the whole, like, the rest of the world did get infected. So it sounds like there's people surviving on an island or something. But anyway, overall, I think it's a really good movie, and I would probably rate it. It's probably a pretty solid 8. I mean, it's 8.5. It's really good. Well written. There's not really any like major logical loopholes. Usually in movies like this, like, well, why didn't they do this or why didn't they do this? There's not a lot of that here. Like, it's pretty straightforward why they did everything they did. There doesn't seem to be smarter choices at any given moment. Maybe one here or there, but these are also all just regular people trying to survive. So, and most of the people in the movie who deserve to have bad things happen to them get their comeuppance, including the people at the very beginning of the movie who let the virus out. They definitely got what was coming to them. So, but yeah, and like when you see it, you can see how this movie helped, again, revive the zombie genre at that point. Now, for the more comedic British approach, you have Shaun of the Dead, of course. But now this was a good movie. None of the characters carry over into the sequel. There's the chance that one of them's going to carry over into the third one, though, because one of the people is heavily involved in the production. So people are theorizing that they're also going to actually be in the movie, but there's not in the trailer, and so we don't know for sure. I hope they are, though. So, like I said, I'd probably give this one an 8, maybe 8.5. It's pretty solid. I do think it's better than the sequel. Now, the sequel's not bad. It's just that, again, like it's literally stupidity that drove what happened, the calamity in the sequel. And I need to watch it again just to make sure I got it all fresh in my mind. Now, that one's got a few more stars people might recognize. I believe Idris Elba's in that one. And Jeremy Renner. And I can never remember the other guy's name. He's a British actor. Plays Renard in The World Is Not Enough Bond movie. He's not the main villain. That's actually, I think, the only Bond movie that the main villain's a woman, Sophie Marceau's character. And yeah, he's in place of what would normally be the henchman, except he's more like a co-conspirator. So kind of an interesting setup in that movie. It's one of my favorite Bond movies. I think it might be my favorite Pierce Brosnan one. I think I do like it a little bit better than GoldenEye. But yeah, that one. There's a couple other actors I should recognize in that one, but just off the top of my head, I don't know their names. So if I do a review for that one, I'll let you all know who's in that one. I don't know who's in the third one. I haven't really looked into the cast yet. So presumably there'll be more well-known people, given that this is the third in the franchise, and the other two movies are fairly popular. So, but yeah, if you jump straight to the sequel, I'd probably rate it. This is based on having watched it years ago. It's probably 6.5. It is not, in my opinion, is not as good as the first one. This one I think is the better of the two. But that's just me. It does not suffer from sequelitis. Like, there was thought put into it. It's just some elements of the execution and some things happen. You're just kind of like, I don't know about that. But yeah, overall, this is a good movie. Definitely check it out. If you're concerned about certain things, there is, despite the implication of what's going to happen, there's no sex in the movie. The biggest intimacy is a couple people kiss at various points. Now, it is very violent. Most of it is the infected attacking people, but also it's people attacking the infected. And since they don't have guns, they're using like bats and machetes and things like that. Then once they do have guns, they're shooting them up. So definitely violent, definitely lots and lots of cursing, lots of very colorful English cursing, and yeah. So I mean, I would say someone 13, 14, maybe 12. I think the violence, while bloody, it's not super graphic. If that makes sense. Like you see blood, or like people that get infected and they try to take them out first. You know, there's one or two graphic parts, but for the most part, it's you see what's happening, but you don't see the direct effects. You just kind of see blood splatter. So you know, I wouldn't let like a 10-year-old watch it, but 12, 13, they've probably seen worse at this point. So, and of course, that probably speaks more to our society than anything else. But I don't know. I watched worse when I was like 8, so that's just me. I didn't turn out to be a psychopath. So anyway, definitely check it out. I own a digital copy, also a physical copy. Put the usual Amazon affiliate links for the physical copies if you want them, and if it's on Prime Video, there'll be a link for that too. Otherwise, I don't know what streaming service it is on, but like I said, I've got the digital copy through. It used to be Vudu, now it's Fandango. But yeah, overall, definitely worth checking out, especially if you like zombie movies. But just know it's not super technically a zombie movie. But yeah, that's all I've got to say on this one. So let me know down in the comments if you've seen this movie, think you're going to see this movie. Big fan of Cillian Murphy. Did you like him in Oppenheimer? Anything at all like that, let me know. Is it worthwhile to distinguish that these are not, in fact, zombies when they behave very much like zombies? Anything like that. Otherwise, if you like what you heard here, like, share, subscribe, all that fun stuff. Sharing and commenting would help us grow the channel. It was appreciated. But yeah, that's all I've got on this one today. So just remember, watch out for those stupid eco-terrorists who want to release rage-infected monkeys and end up destroying your whole country. Watch out for those folks.